talk to me first about your accent. So
Yeah, I have kind of a unique accent. Sometimes when I speak, people wonder if I'm from New Jersey or what part of the country I'm from. And so I tell them that I have an MD Anderson Cancer Center accent. They kind of go, what's that? Well, I've had cancer 8 times. I've had 7 surgeries. In my 6th one, they removed 80% of my tongue, and they took muscle off my leg and put it in my mouth. So I have 20% of my original tongue, 80% is muscle from my leg. So some people have their foot in their mouth. I have my whole leg in my mouth. And they told me I'd never speak again. They said someday your wife might understand 2 sentences, but maybe not. They said you have a feeling for the rest of your life. And so I decided that if I couldn't speak, it wouldn't be because I didn't try. So I spent probably 7 months, 6, 7, 8 months, saying my ABCs hundreds of times. And for the first couple of weeks, I couldn't understand one letter from the next. Gradually, I began to sound like an intoxicated Elmer Fudd, and then I began to be semi-intelligible. But sometimes I can be hard to understand. But for 20% of my tongue, it's not bad. You know?
I just spent the 4 days with you at a monastery, and everybody could understand you. That's amazing. I just watched you over the past few years even improve.
Well, you remember when I was not doing very good.
Yeah. That was a lot of people praying for you. So.
Well, some of my good friends said that I was never a very good speaker, so.
This helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse now. No, you're amazing speaker. It's neat to see the amazing work that God's done to bring you back and see you up at the AEC World Conference up front and speaking to thousands of people. And so,
you know, I spent my life, Kevin, you have too, talking about how great our God is, how God's a promise keeper, not just a promise maker. And I'm a living example of if we trust God, you know, and even if I couldn't speak again, God would still be a good God. Yeah. But yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that history? You've had so many incredible losses, and a lot of times when I'm talking about grief, I refer to you as the modern day Job. You know.
I wish I had another moniker, but that makes sense. Well, in addition to the 8 cancers, 7 surgeries, my 7th cancer was inoperable, advanced stage 4. They said I had less than 3 months to live. I needed to go home and contact hospice, and that was 6 years ago. So you have the cancer piece, but in 1996 I buried my mom. In 2005, my dad died after a couple of years of illness. 2 months later, my wife, the then wife, Carrie, was diagnosed with metastatic pancreatic cancer. And she was given 3 to 6 months max to live. And but God spared her for a season. 2006, I had my 5th cancer surgery. 2007, my middle son Matt died, and 2 months later, my wife of then 27 years, Carrie, died. In 2008, my only sibling, my sister Marcia, died. So in 4 years, I finished burying my entire biological family and half of my existing family. And there have been other things along the way, but for a lot of people, one loss would be devastating, and rightly so. You know, there's no way you can compare losses. People say, well, Dr. Oliver, you know, I've not suffered nearly what you have. And my response is, you know what, it's not about that. God gave me the grace to not just survive, because I don't believe Christ died and rose again for us to tread water. You know, Ephesians 3:20 doesn't say, now to him who's able to help us tread water and suck air until we die and go to heaven. But it says, now to him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we ask or think. And there's no asterisk that says, but only when good things are going on. So I've between the cancer and burying 4 family members in 4 years, yeah, there have been massive losses. And I'm still, in some ways, recovering. But I've done more than recover. I've done more than survive. But that's part of the story.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I want to interview you, because you've had so many compounded losses, and the losses are different from a sudden unexpected death, you know, to, you know, your own loss of so many losses with your cancer, you
Yeah.
know, of being able to function at the level you were. You're a national figure on multiple platforms, and you know that's incredible. But I think the thing is, having known you for 20 years and
Yeah.
watched you through all this, the thing that was amazing to me is I think you're such an inspiration to other people who've had much greater loss when they look at your life with all these multiple losses and say, you know, how in the heck are you still not only just standing but thriving? And you know, this weekend you were with a bunch of us pastors there and leading them to become more emotionally and spiritually and relationally healthy, you know. And so I guess, you know, what would you say to people who are going through incredible loss and just trials like, you know, health issues like you've had or whatever? What sustained you?
Part of what Kevin sustained me is that I had a good relationship with Christ before this happened. The best time to deal with a crisis is before a crisis ever comes. And to help those we love to have healthy relationships, to have some trusted friends. Now, if you don't, there's still a lot of hope. And it's never easy, but it's easier when you know how to manage some emotions and you're not caught off guard. And as you know, I have some male friends who I love, who love me, who I can be straight with. And I don't have to pose and do my pseudo-spiritual, well, everything's fine, I'm just trusting Jesus. Well, I was, but it wasn't quite that simple. And yeah, I'm still coping. There are times I still sometimes will see a face or the back of someone's head reminds me of a loved one, and I'll have tears come. And that's good. That's a good thing. That's a healthy thing. You know, people think, well, I've not got through the grief or trauma unless I don't feel any more pain. That's just not true. It's about managing. When you've loved well, when you've been loved well, then you grieve. But we can grieve in ways that can be toxic, which can let us define ourselves, or we can grieve as those who have hope.
What was Gary's grief like? Cognitively, you know, physically, emotionally, spiritually? How would you define grief?
I process things more slowly. I was disoriented sometimes. I had emotional, psychological disequilibrium. I couldn't trust my emotions as well. I wasn't hungry, and then I was. Impacted my sleep. I was much slower. I was much more tentative. I tend to be a bit more negative or critical. Kind of, what's next? Okay. For me, grief was emotional. It was psychological. It was physical. It was also spiritual. But because of things in my life for so long, I knew that God was there. I knew I could trust Him. It wasn't about that. But it was about making sense of it and trying, because I knew I had to walk through it. But oh, it was hard, sometimes weeks. And when I went on that chemo, that was a brand new experimental chemo, they didn't know how to dose it exactly. So I was like a crash test dummy. They said, if it helps, it might take you a year to recover. For several months, I couldn't walk. I could walk from my bedroom to my office barely. I couldn't even walk out in the front yard of the mailbox. I had no strength. I couldn't keep food down when it stayed down. I mean, physical stuff, but the cognitive, I couldn't read a book, Kevin. I started reading, I would, you know. That surprised me. I didn't know how comprehensive the effects of grief could be. It wasn't just sadness or sorrow or depression. It touched almost every aspect of who I was as a person.